In the spring of 457 BC, on the muddy plains of Boeotia, two powerful forces of the ancient world stood ready for a battle that would shake the foundations of Greece. 14,000 Athenian soldiers, confident in their city's growing power, faced the legendary might of Sparta and her friends. This wasn't just another small fight. It was a clash of different beliefs, of empires, and of a group of soldiers who only knew the brutal reality of the phalanx. This is the story of how that field turned red at the Battle of Tanagra. To titans collide. Athens versus Sparta. For 20 long years, the First Peloponnesian War had simmered, a slow burn threatening to erupt across the Greek world. Athens, still proud from pushing back the mighty Persians at Marathon and Salamis, hadn't just recovered, she was thriving. Her naval power, once used only for defense, had transformed the Delian League, a group meant to protect Greek states from Persia, into a vast, demanding empire. City-states that once contributed ships and men now simply paid money, filling Athenian treasuries and fueling endless expansion. Triremes, sleek and fast warships, projected Athenian power across the Aegean Sea. Each new fort and trading post was proof of her growing influence. Meanwhile, Sparta, ancient and stubborn, watched from her landlocked Peloponnesian stronghold. To her, every new Athenian fort, every freshly minted coin of tribute flowing into Athens, felt like a personal insult. Sparta, the guardian of traditional Greek values and a rigid land-based ruling class, saw Athens' democratic trading empire as a dangerous, destabilizing force. Could two such completely opposite powers truly coexist? It seemed increasingly unlikely. The breaking point, that spark that lit the powder keg, came in 457 BC at the small village of Doris. This wasn't just any village. It was the traditional homeland of the Dorians, the very people from whom the Spartans claimed their heritage. To Sparta, Doris was sacred ground, a symbol of their history and identity. When Athens threw its weight behind Phocis in a local turf war, moving into this Spartan area of influence, it was a move Sparta couldn't ignore. This wasn't just a fight over borders, it was a direct challenge to Spartan honor. So Sparta answered. Under the command of the regent Nicomedes, a large army marched north, a clear message to the upstart democrats of Athens. Know your place. The Spartans intended to teach them a lesson in humility, to remind them of the Peloponnesian League's lasting might. But the Athenians, ever bold, weren't about to back down. They slammed a garrison into nearby Megara, a strategically important city. This wasn't just a defensive move, it was a calculated block, cutting off the Peloponnesians' shortest and most direct route home. Suddenly, Nicomedes' army was isolated, unable to retreat without a lengthy and potentially dangerous detour. Both sides, with chilling clarity, understood what this meant. The next clash wouldn't be some minor border fight, a quick raid for cattle, or a disputed field. No, this was going to be a statement fight, a decisive battle, and the obvious place to make that statement was the crossroads city of Tanagra. Tanagra wasn't just a dot on the map, it was the gateway to Boeotia, a fertile region whose vast wheat fields were absolutely vital for feeding Athens' growing population. Control Tanagra, controlled Boeotia, and you dealt a crippling blow to the Athenian war machine. The stage was set, the players in place, and the air crackled with anticipation. The clash of bronze and blood. Let's talk about the men who would face each other that day. On the Athenian side, the commander was Myronides, a name that carried weight. He was a tough veteran, a man who had not only witnessed history but had made it. Legend had it he'd even carried the stretcher of the great Miltiades at Marathon decades earlier. Can you imagine the stories he could tell? He gathered every man he could, proof of Athens' ability to mobilize. The core was 10,000 Athenian citizens, shoulder to shoulder, gleaming in their bronze armor. These weren't professional soldiers in the Spartan sense. They were farmers, merchants, craftsmen called from their homes to defend their city and its growing empire. Yet when they formed up, they were an impressive sight, their confidence boosted by recent victories and their city's undeniable power. But Athens wasn't alone. 1,000 elite Argives marched alongside them, their distinctive scarlet cloaks a splash of defiant color. This wasn't just a piece of paper declaring an alliance. This was Argos, a traditional rival of Sparta, standing with Athens. It was a powerful political statement and a significant military boost. Then there were the Thessalian cavalry, 400 horses, a rare and valuable asset in Greek warfare, galloping on the wings. ready to exploit any weakness or chase down a broken enemy. Light-armed Plataeans, fierce and independent, and archers from the Aegean islands, known for their skill with the bow, filled out the line, adding skirmishing power. In total, Myronides commanded 14,000 souls, a diverse and numerically superior force ready to defend the democratic dream. Across the field, Nicomedes surveyed his own army, a force totaling 11,500. But don't let the numbers fool you. The composition was key. Only 1,500 of these were true Spartiates, the black-cloaked perfectionists, the very embodiment of military excellence. These were men raised from age 7 in the brutal Ideologies, trained for one purpose, and one purpose only: to kill, and to do it with unyielding discipline. They were a living, breathing weapon honed to perfection. Their presence alone was enough to strike fear into the hearts of many. The rest of Nicomedes' army consisted of Perioeci, free neighbors of Sparta, who weren't full citizens but were required to serve, and thousands of allied hoplites from Boeotia and Corinth. These allies, though brave, knew full well the reputation of the Spartans. They understood that marching alongside Spartan discipline could transform their own bronze into something far deadlier, lending a fearsome edge to their combined force. Cavalry Nicomedes had none. But on this narrow plain nestled between olive groves, he didn't need it. The Spartans trusted their right wing, famously strong, where the king's guard stood 8 ranks deep, their shields emblazoned with the distinctive lambda, the symbol of Laconia. They would be the hammer, and they would break any line that dared to face them. The night before, a heavy hush fell over the Boeotian plain. Both armies camped within sight of each other's fires, the flickering lights a constant, unsettling reminder of the coming carnage. In the Athenian camp, the atmosphere was a mix of nervous energy and practical preparation. Slaves, used to following their masters to war, hammered dents from bronze breastplates, repairing the inevitable wear and tear of a long march. Citizens gathered around small fires and debated the wisdom of their position. Should they wait for reinforcements from the long walls of Athens? Those massive fortifications gained Athens to its port, Piraeus, were a symbol of their city's strength and a potential source of fresh troops. Myronides, however, was firm. To delay, he argued, would signal fear, an unacceptable notion for proud Athenians. Their democratic spirit, their belief in their own skill, demanded a direct confrontation. To wait would be to betray their confidence, to give Sparta an undeserved psychological advantage. The air was thick with the scent of wood smoke, fear, and the metallic temps of polished bronze. In the Spartan camp, the talk was colder, more subdued, yet filled with an almost ritualistic resolve. Tradition dictated that a king should command the army, but the young king Pleistanax was still a boy, too young to lead men into such a decisive battle. So his cousin Nicomedes served as regent, carrying the immense responsibility of Spartan military honor. There was no debate about waiting for reinforcements. Spartans did not wait. Their very identity was built on unwavering resolve and a willingness to face any foe. To underline this resolve, the Spartiates performed an ancient ritual. They carefully combed their long hair. It wasn't vanity, not in the way the Athenians would later joke. It was a solemn, powerful gesture, a preparation for the ultimate sacrifice. "We may die tomorrow," the silent ritual proclaimed, "so we shall look beautiful in Hades." It was a chilling testament to their readiness for death, a stark contrast to the Athenians' more boisterous energy. Across the no man's land of wheat stubble, the Athenians, ever quick with a joke, said the gesture proved Spartans were vain. But that joke, like many others, died a swift death when whistles shrilled at dawn, piercing the morning mist, and as the scarlet cloaks of the Spartan phalanx formed in perfect, terrifying silence, the true meaning of that ritual became chillingly clear. The Spartan maneuver discipline unleashed first light. 457 BC, the world seemed to hold its breath. A thick fog, rolling off the nearby Asopus River, clung stubbornly to knee level, covering the battlefield in an eerie, unsettling mist. When the trumpets finally sounded, their sharp calls echoing strangely in the muffled air, the two phalanxes saw not men but a surreal, terrifying sight, a wall of spear points seemingly floating toward them through the swirling vapor. It was a vision straight out of a nightmare, the enemy made abstract and monstrous. The Athenians advanced 8 men deep, a formidable human wave. Their left wing, made up of the elite Argives, was meant to hold strong, while Myronides himself led the right. The Spartans, ever precise, angled their formation to the right, a standard drill designed to outflank the enemy's left, to turn their flank and roll up their line. For the first 300 yards, an agonizing distance, the only sound was the rhythmic thud of leather soles on the damp earth and the chilling hiss of iron sorters, the spear butts striking the ground with each measured step. The tension was unbearable, a silent build-up leading to an inevitable, deafening crash. And then it came. The impact was not just a sound, it was a physical shockwave, a sickening crunch of bronze against bronze, wood against shield. Flesh against iron. Hoplite warfare wasn't just a battle, it was a brutal, relentless physics problem. Imagine 8 ranks of men, each pushing with the combined weight of a 40-pound shield and a 25-pound spear, meeting another 8 ranks, doing precisely the same. It was a human battering ram, an unstoppable force meeting an immovable object until one side buckled. The front rank, the poor souls who met the initial impact, were lucky to live 20 seconds. Spears splintered with explosive force, sending shards of wood flying. Bronze aspices, once gleaming, dented and caved like flimsy wineskins under the relentless pressure. Men behind, driven by fear and the unstoppable push of those behind them, shoved the living forward over the fallen, creating a horrific carpet of bodies and broken gear. At Tanagra, however, the Spartans did something truly unexpected, a testament to their unmatched training and discipline. They didn't wait for the Athenian push to fully materialize. On a precise command, the first 3 ranks of their right wing knelt, locking their shields together to form an impenetrable wall. Then, with a terrifying roar, the rear 5 ranks surged over them, a human breaker, crashing down with unimaginable force. It wasn't just a push, it was a focused, concentrated surge that punched a hole clean through the Argive contingent, the Athenian left wing. The Argives, brave as they were, broke first, and honestly, who could blame them? Few Greeks, even the most seasoned, could stand against that kind of disciplined, overwhelming Spartan assault. Myronides, ever the veteran, tried desperately to wheel his own right wing to relieve the pressure on the collapsing left, but in the disorienting fog, amidst the chaos and the screams, the maneuver looked less like a counterattack and more like a retreat. Panic, that sneaky serpent, rippled through the Athenian ranks. The Thessalian cavalry, seeing the gaping hole, charged bravely to plug the gap, their horses thundering through the mist. But the Spartans, unyielding, simply formed a compact square, spears bristling outward, a deadly hedgehog formation. The horses, instinctively pulling back from a solid wall of iron, refused to slam into such a lethal hedge. Within an hour, the Athenian left was not just bending, it was folding, collapsing under the relentless Spartan pressure. The cost of victory. Athenian strategy, their preferred way of fighting, was a straightforward concept: hold the wings with your allies and then win the day in the center with your citizen hoplites, whose morale and training were supposedly superior. Myronides' center, to their credit, was indeed pressing hard. They managed to push the Corinthian contingents back a full stade, about 600 feet, proof of Athenian grit and the sheer determination of their citizen soldiers. It was evidence that when numbers were roughly equal and the fight was head-on, Athenian steel could indeed match Spartan. But the fatal flaw, the crack in the Athenian armor, was that numbers were no longer equal on the wings. The Spartan right, that terrifying wedge of black-cloaked warriors, having utterly shattered the Argives and sent the Athenian left into chaos, now did something truly remarkable. It was a maneuver that Greek armies rarely managed, a feat of discipline and coordination that was almost unheard of in the chaos of battle. A 90-degree pivot, still in perfect step, still a unified unit, they marched across the rear of their own line, a silent, deadly parade. Then, with chilling precision, they slammed into the Athenian center from behind. It was the ancient equivalent of a pincer movement, executed with the flawless precision of a drill squad on parade. Not a desperate maneuver in the heat of battle. The Athenians, locked in a brutal face-to-face struggle with the Peloponnesian allies, suddenly found themselves attacked from the rear. Imagine the utter shock, the sudden paralyzing terror. Lines of Athenian hoplites tried desperately to turn and face this new, unexpected threat. But in the dense formation, shields caught on cloaks, spears tangled in olive branches scattered on the ground, and the once orderly phalanx, the very symbol of Greek military might, dissolved into a terrified, struggling mob. Unity, the lifeblood of hoplite warfare, evaporated. By midday, the wheat field, once green and golden, was stained a deep, horrifying red grim evidence of just how sharp iron can be when wielded with such devastating effect. Asterisk, asterisk. Athenian resilience and rebirth. Asterisk, asterisk. When the Athenian trumpets finally sounded the retreat, it wasn't a triumphant call. It was a sorrowful, desperate wail that signaled the end of a brutal day. They left behind a horrifying toll. 2,100 corpses, a staggering 1 in 6 of their original line. The plain, once alive with the clash of bronze, was now a silent testament to human foolishness and ferocity. The Spartans, too, paid a heavy price. They lost 1,500 men, mostly Perioeci, and their allied contingents from Boeotia and Corinth. But for the Spartiates themselves, the numbers were starkly different. Only 91 true Spartiates fell that day. Yet each name was not merely counted, it was sung aloud in the Spartan camp that night. A solemn, reverent chant honoring those irreplaceable warriors. For Sparta, every lost Spartiate was a wound that went far deeper than mere numbers suggested. Spartan tradition, ever practical and deeply rooted in their warrior ways, dictated burial on the spot. So a mound of earth was raised on the battlefield, a simple, lasting monument to their fallen. Athenian custom, however, called for cremation at home, a return to the embrace of their city. For days afterward, pyres burned across the landscape as the bodies were prepared for their journey back to Athens. In the city, women would shave their heads in public displays of mourning, a stark visual representation of their shared grief. But in Sparta, the response was, as always, stoic and uncompromising. Spartan mothers receiving news of their sons simply asked the survivors one chilling, iconic question: come back with your shield or on it. It was a stark reminder of their warrior code, victory or death, with no room for surrender or cowardice. Technically, yes, Sparta had won the Battle of Tanagra. The Athenians had retreated, their ranks decimated, their pride wounded. Yet Nicomedes did not pursue. This seemingly puzzling decision speaks volumes about the nature of ancient warfare and the realities on the ground. His men were utterly exhausted, drained by the sheer physical effort of the phalanx push and the complex flanking maneuver. Supplies were running dangerously low after a long march north and a hard-fought battle. And though no proud Spartan would ever admit it aloud, Nicomedes likely had a genuine concern. He knew that the long walls of Athens, those massive defensive structures, weren't just fortifications. They were a symbol of Athenian resilience, a formidable barrier behind which another Athenian army could seemingly appear at any moment. To press a tired army against such a foe so close to their home base would have been reckless. So with their tactical victory secured, the Spartans collected their dead, performed a solemn sacrifice of a goat to Apollo, their patron god, and began the long march south back to the Peloponnese. They had taught Athens a lesson, certainly, but it hadn't been the knockout blow they might have hoped for. And here's where the story takes a surprising turn. Proof of Athenian resilience. Bloodied, yes, but far from broken, the Athenians demonstrated an astonishing ability to recover. Within a mere 62 days, just over 2 months, Myronides, the same tough general who had led them at Tanagra, was back in command. He led a fresh Athenian army, strengthened by new recruits and renewed determination, and inflicted a crushing defeat on Thebes at the Battle of Oenophyta. This wasn't just a minor skirmish. It was a decisive victory that completely reversed the strategic gains Sparta had made at Tanagra. Boeotia, the very region Sparta had fought to secure, became an Athenian protectorate for the next decade. In the long, complex record of the First Peloponnesian War, Tanagra stands as a perplexing paradox. It was without a doubt a Spartan tactical victory, a stunning display of their military skill. Yet in the bigger picture, it handed Athens a strategic empire. The empire strikes back. Battle of Oenophyta, the Battle of Tanagra, though a Spartan victory on the day, proved 3 deeply important things, shaping the path of ancient Greek history. First, it confirmed that Spartan battlefield drill and their legendary discipline could still overcome superior numbers. When those black-cloaked warriors moved as one, their phalanx was an almost unstoppable force. Yet there was a hidden cost. Every Spartiate who fell at Tanagra was virtually irreplaceable. Their brutal 13-year training program created perfect soldiers, but it was a slow, expensive, and ultimately limited process. Sparta simply couldn't afford to lose many of them. Each lost Spartiate was a severe blow to the very core of their society, a stark reminder of the population weakness underpinning their military might. Second, Athenian resilience wasn't just a matter of morale or fiery speeches. It was deeply logistical. The speed with which they re-equipped 10,000 hoplites and marched again within 2 months was nothing short of astonishing. This wasn't just grit, it was the power of their growing empire, their vast wealth, their access to manpower, and their efficient administration. Athens, with its thriving port and extensive trade networks, could absorb losses and regenerate its forces in a way landlocked Sparta simply couldn't match. It was proof of the strength of their economic and political system. Third, and perhaps most importantly, Tanagra hammered home the chilling realization that the war was no longer about mere border raids or localized disputes. The stakes had been raised dramatically. This was a fundamental clash of civilizations, a fight to determine which model of society would ultimately dominate Greece. Would it be Athens, the open, sea-based democracy, a vibrant hub of commerce, culture, and radical political innovation? Or would it be Sparta, the closed, land-rooted oligarchy, a conservative military state obsessed with order, tradition, and martial excellence? Tanagra was a bloody, visceral preview of the existential struggle that would define the next century of Greek history. The Peloponnesians, already wary, would remember Tanagra's heavy cost when the next, far greater war, the one we now simply call the Peloponnesian War, began, just 22 short years later. A conflict that would tear Greece apart. ****, the War of Civilizations, Sparta versus Athens. Ideologies *******, the meaning of Tanagra, ******, conclusion, echoes beneath the olive trees ***. Today, the olive groves around Tanagra still grow wild, their twisted branches reaching under the Greek sun, much as they did thousands of years ago. Local farmers tilling the ancient soil sometimes still turn up a rusted spatter, the iron-butt spike of a spire, a forgotten echo of that brutal day. No grand monument marks the exact spot. The mound of Spartan dead, a silent testament to their sacrifice, eroded centuries ago, reclaimed by the relentless march of time. Yet if you stand there at dawn when the fog drifts low and kisses the earth, and the only sound is the soft breathing of grazing goats, you can almost feel it. You can almost hear the crunch of 8,000 shields meeting destiny. The shouts, the clash of bronze, the desperate cries. The Battle of Tanagra did not end the rivalry between Athens and Sparta. It merely carved that rivalry deeper, more painfully, into the very soil of Greece itself. It remains a stark, lasting warning. When empires clash, when beliefs collide, even victory can bleed the winner white, leaving behind a legacy of loss that echoes through the ages.